Welcome to Stellar Sisters, the podcast where cosmic wisdom meets soul-enriching conversation.
We explore astrology, human design, and the unique blueprint of your soul, helping you understand yourself on a deeper level.
Consider this your permission slip to embrace the magic of being authentically you.
Let's begin.
Hi, and welcome back to the Stellar Sisters podcast. I'm Shaniel.
And I'm Sydney.
And today we have a very special episode all about Venus retrograde. So in this episode, we're going to talk about our current Venus retrograde cycle, the dates, the signs, what Venus retrograde means, the cycles of Venus retrograde, and Sydney is going to talk about the gates in human design that Venus retrograde is highlighting, which is super cool and interesting. I can't wait to hear about that personally. And then at the end, we will do some horoscopes for each sign. So you can really get a personalized view of what this Venus retrograde cycle means for you and how it might be coming up in your chart. So let's jump into it. Let's start talking about Venus, which as a Libra sun and Sydney as a Libra rising, Venus is, dare I say, our favorite planet or one of our favorite planets.
Definitely.
Okay, so we're recording this podcast on Saturday, March 22nd. Venus, yes, is retrograde March 1st through April 12th. It's actually retrograding in two signs this retrograde period. So it's retrograding in Aries and in Pisces. So Venus is retrograde in Aries from March 1st through March 27th. And it's retrograde in Pisces from March 27th through April 12th. So those are the dates that we're really working with. It is retrograding from 10 degrees of Aries back into 24 degrees of Pisces. So if you do have any planets within 24 Pisces to 10 Aries, you might be feeling this Venus retrograde a little bit more than others who might not have any personal placements in that sign. So Venus is always retrograde for about 40 days, or that equates to roughly about 6 weeks. And that is interesting, just as a side note, because that 40 days, 40 nights, that 40 number does tend to come up in, I know, Christianity, and I believe other world religions as well. And we won't go into that too much during this podcast, but I do think that that is quite interesting, how that correlates. Now, even though Venus is retrograde from March 1st through April 12th, I want to talk a little bit about the shadow period of Venus. And really, all retrogrades have a shadow period, Mercury, Mars, etc. But what is a shadow period? And what does that mean? So Venus's retrograde shadow period began on January 28th. And the shadow period actually doesn't end until May 16th. So when Venus is chugging along in the solar system, Venus is retrograding in Aries and Pisces. So when Venus first, it's going direct and it enters Pisces and it comes up to that 24 degrees of Pisces, which is the degree that Venus will retrograde back to. That's when the Venus shadow period starts. So Venus is going direct, and It's chugging along direct in the solar system, and then it's going to retrograde and go back over all of the degrees that it just transited. So the shadow period starts when Venus first enters the degree that it will retrograde at. Does that make sense, Sydney?
Yes. It makes sense
Yes.
to me.
Yes. So when Venus first enters 24 degrees of Pisces, which is the degree that it will retrograde back to, that is January 28th. So starting on January 28th, things are moving forward, things are chugging along, but during this retrograde period, things that came up starting on January 28th can come up for review. So, say you have a conversation with somebody on January 28th and you think things are good and things are moving forward, then Venus retrograde hits and Venus is retrograding back on that same degree. That conversation could come back up again for review, and maybe you decide to change something that you had previously agreed upon. And the same thing with the shadow period at the end. So even though Venus goes direct on April 12th, it's still further back in the zodiac, than when Venus retrograde started. So Venus has to again traverse throughout all of those degrees to get past where the retrograde was. So the shadow period ends on May 16th. So again, even though the retrograde is really March 1st through April 12th, those shadow dates of January 28th through May 16th are important because the themes still may be coming up during those dates.
And I just want to add too, for me personally, I find that I really start to feel the energies in the shadow period. And then sometimes in the retrograde, like things are fine. There might be a hiccup here and there, but sometimes the retrograde can just be okay. And the days that it's stationing are the days that I really feel it. And I really start to feel these different energies and different themes or like hints of what the theme's going to be before it actually retrogrades. Just want to
Hmm.
add that.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're aware of those cycles and aware, oh, I'm in the shadow period where all of these days, the things that are happening on these days might come back up for review. So don't get too comfortable with that, you know, because you're probably going to be revisiting some of that. Yeah, so Venus isn't fully kind of out of this retrograde cycle until May 16th. So typically, Venus spends about 30 days in one sign, but Venus is really staying in the Pisces Aries realm for about 4 months. So we're getting a really long extended stay of Venus in one area of our charts where these themes are going to be coming up, repeatedly over several months, which is unique. And so Venus in general, the planet, really represents love and relationships, um, connection, coming together. Venus is a unifying force. It represents beauty and art and harmony and peace, our desires. It can represent money and the feminine and women in general. So when Venus is retrograde, these are really all of the topics that are coming up for review. Um, Now, all of those topics, when Venus is retrograde, they are not necessarily functioning optimally, functioning in the normal way Venus operates. Um, so when Venus goes retrograde, it's this review period, this reflection period, reevaluating all of those R's: review, reflect, reevaluate. So we're reviewing and looking back, the past can come up for review, which is why Venus retrograde is notorious for your exes coming back or past relationships coming up in some way. Um, we might be reconnecting with past people, lovers, relationships, but it doesn't have to be romantic. It can be in any capacity, people from, business partners to friends to romantic relationships, family, etc. Um, but old relationships are a theme that can resurface during this time. So that's kind of one of the most stereotypical ways that Venus retrograde can kind of surface is old relationships or people from our past um, coming back into our lives. Or maybe we're just thinking about past relationships or um, people from our past and kind of reflecting on that. And, um, maybe things are coming up for review within yourself, being like, oh, um, you know, how is a way that maybe I could have handled that situation differently, or how do I want to handle situations like that better moving forward in my life, something like that. But since Venus does also represent beauty, art, connection, desire, it can really be a time of reevaluating your desires, um, or what you find enjoyment in, um, or what you find beauty in, or what you find beautiful. So, reevaluating that. Um, Reevaluating how you connect with other people. Um, how can I deepen my relationships? How can I make my relationships better when Venus isn't functioning necessarily optimally? There can maybe be some friction there in relationships because the planet of beauty and harmony and peace isn't functioning normally. So there it can cause some friction, which initially sounds like not a great thing. But it can really cause cause us to reflect on, oh, how am I relating with other people, and how can I make that better? How can I create more harmony in this relationship? um, so if any of that friction piece is coming up during this time, really take a pause and take time to reflect on, what am I doing or not doing in this relationship, or and how can I make this work better for me? Um, because we're really that relationships and connections are coming up for review. So think of it as the software of Venus is updating in your life, and depending on where Aries and Pisces fall in your chart, can give more context to what area that is for you. Um, Now, an interesting note about the Venus retrograde cycle is Venus retrograde repeats itself in an 8-year cycle. So every 8 years, Venus retrogrades in the same sign. So if you think back to March and April of 2017, we had the same exact Venus retrograde cycle that's happening now. So all of those themes from 2017 are being reactivated. So I want you to think back to that spring of 2017 and what was coming up for you then, because there are very similar themes happening currently. One interesting date during this Venus retrograde cycle is um, actually today, March 22nd, of the day that we are recording this podcast. Um, Venus is going to be Cazimi. And a Cazimi is when a planet reaches essentially the same degree as the sun. Um, and it is when the planet, like Mercury, Venus, Mars, etc., is within 16 minutes to 1 degree of the sun. There is some debate about what degrees actually constitute a cazimi within the astrological community. I typically think that it's within 1 degree is kind of how I use cazimi in my practice. Um, when the planet comes within 1 degree of the sun, it is like a moment of renewal for that planet. It's like a new moon for that planet. So, a new moon is when the sun and moon come together at the same degree. So, you can think of when Venus and the sun come together, when Mercury and the sun come together, when Mars and the sun come together. It's like a new moon for that planet. And it can represent a moment of clarity. Light bulb can come on. Um, it is a very heightened and potent time for that planet. So when we're talking about Venus, it is a really great time for Venusian matters such as love, connection, beauty, art, etc. Um, and during the retrograde period, when those Venusian themes can be a little bit confusing or not operating optimally, that Venus Cazimi can really be a time of clarity, or a time when you get a light bulb moment. You are able to have some reflection or some insight about how to actually move forward and what actually this retrograde is teaching you, and what lessons you can learn from this retrograde. So that Kazemi moment happens on March 22nd at 6:07 p.m. So on this Saturday, um, you can really find some clarity or insight around what that Venus retrograde means for you. Um, and I know Sydney has some really great insight around the human design gates and how what gates Venus is transiting through in human design. So let Sydney take that away.
Yeah. So typically, if we're moving forward in the zodiac, like the sun would move through, in this order, it'd move through the gates 36, 25, 17, and 21. So those are the gates that are being activated during this Venus retrograde. And Venus is stationing retrograde in gate 21. So that's where it's going to start. So it's going to go backwards on March 1st. It already is going backwards. It's going to go backwards in gate 21, and then it'll go to 17, 25, and then 36. And then once it stations direct again, it'll move back through all of those gates again. So you're going to get a lot of activity through these four gates over this time. And I'm going to start with gate 21 because that's where Venus started the retrograde. And before I get into the gate energy, if you have any of these gates in your chart, that means you have access to consistent flow of these energetic gifts. So if you don't have it defined, if the gate is just open, it's not going to be colored in red or black, that means that you're able to tap into these energies during this time. It's not consistent for you, so it's not going to be a consistent energy that you have, but during this activation, you can tap into these energies. So, if you have it undefined in your chart, it takes somebody with this gate or a transit activating this gate to, have you feeling these energies. So during the retrograde, since Venus is moving through all of the gates, whether you have it defined or not, we're all still feeling these energies that I'm going to talk about. So you can take this time to contemplate, am I using the highest expression of this energy, or am I kind of stuck in the low expression of it? And like Chanel said, can I review this? Can I edit it? Do I need to change different habits in my life? And really taking a look at your relationships, not only with your romantic partner, but business relationships, friends, your relationship with yourself. So I'm going to go through the gates. And this starts at gate 21. Like I said, this is the degrees 9, 15 degrees of Aries. And this is the gate of the hunter. So this is in the heart, ego center. So your willpower. And the gate of the hunter is here to be in complete control over their resources. It's a really masculine energy. They're not afraid to look at their finances or their resources. So this is just such an Aries energy to me. So it's so funny how this gate correlates with Aries. Um,
Definitely no
so
coincidence there.
yeah. And if you have this gate, it's actually really healthy for you to be motivated by money. So, some people can have that feeling of shame around that, but like if you actually have this energy, then that's an alignment for you, to feel that motivation.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and in human design, this is actually part of the channel of money, and I'm not going to get into that. But if you have gate 45 as well, 45 as well, this is just a little tangent. You do have the channel of money, and that's a pretty rare channel. So just want to say that if you have that, it is very healthy for you to be motivated by money, and if you have the channel, even more so.
Yeah. And if
So
you're wondering if you do have the channel, go on our website, stellarsisterspodcast.com, and you can pull up your human design and astrology birth chart on there. Because that would be really handy to have on hand when you're listening to this so you can know if you do have any of these channels activated.
yes, yes, and if you have this one in particular, gate 21, you're going to see it in the little triangle kind of in the middle. It's above your solar plexus area and off of the big square in the middle that's your G center. So this is that little one right there, and you'll see it. It'll either be colored in black or in red. And I go into detail about what the black and red means in the previous episode. So if you missed that, go back and listen to that one. But the gate of the hunter, the high expression, like I just said, is having control over your resources, feeling confident about that, feeling confident about your finances and being motivated by money. And the low expression is avoiding responsibilities around those things. So around finances and even trying to control others' resources. This gate is helpful to help other people with their finances and resources if you're using your strategy and authority correctly. But if you're kind of just trying to control other people's resources without using your strategy and authority, that's where you can start to embody that lower expression. So what I find so interesting is that the retrograde is starting here. So you can revisit these concepts in your life, because Venus is stationing here and then it's going to come back once it's direct and go through this again. And you can just really ask yourself, are you embodying the low expression of this um, and trying to control others' resources or maybe shying away from your finances? And how can you lean into just feeling more comfortable with taking charge over those things? So then moving on to gate 17, that's the next gate that it's going to retrograde through. And this is 3 to 9 degrees of Aries. And this is the gate of opinions. And Chanel, you actually have this gate. And
Oh, okay. I'm listening.
yeah, and this is located in the Ajna Center, so third eye area. And remember, the Ajna Center is where you can start to conceptualize your ideas. And if you have this gift, you're here to be a leader by sharing your opinions. So your opinion might not be true or right, but what's important is that it's true and valid to you, right?
Mm,
So this is a really powerful gate, and it's a big part of your life purpose if you have this to share your opinion and feel comfortable sharing your opinion and valuing your own opinion. So this
mm,
is a good time to ask yourself, like, do I feel like I value my own opinion? And the low expression of this is fear that no one will value your opinion or thinking that your opinion is the only valid one. So, not having kind of that open mind and just thinking, like, okay, this is my way or the highway. Um,
mm.
but if you can lean into, you know, feeling like this is my opinion, this is important to share with others, it's just going to expand you forward.
That's very interesting because I do feel like I struggle with that actually. I don't know if it's my Libra nature that want to keep the peace or get along with everybody, but that is something that
Well,
um,
so okay,
I can struggle with.
so for you, you have an undefined ajna center. So this gate is located there and that is defined for you, but since the whole center is undefined, it can be easy to kind of take on other people's opinions and ideas and that conditioning there and kind of sift through it and be like, okay, well, what is my actual opinion? What do I value here most? And then feeling comfortable sharing it as well.
Mm,
So it's not a consistent energy for you there. Like the whole center is undefined.
yeah,
That could be why it's a little bit harder for you to tap into it. Um, but again,
yeah.
this it's so fun to be able to have awareness of this and of these little like micro energies within Aries and Pisces and kind of revisit and contemplate and think. And you don't have to even do anything about it during this retrograde period. You could just have awareness over it during this time and start to kind of ponder it. And maybe it takes like till the next retrograde cycle for you to actually like really implement this into your life.
Totally. Totally. And I think that's also interesting because sharing your opinion is very much a third housey, like third house about speaking your truth and sharing your truth,
Mm.
which this retrograde is happening in Pisces, which is my third house,
Wow.
where also um the north node is currently, and where we're going to start to have eclipses with the north node in Pisces, and I currently have Saturn there in Pisces, and I think that that is
Mm.
really teaching me a lot about communication and finding my voice, and with the Venus retrograde there, communicating in a way that's effective, that's bringing people together, that's not, um, off-putting,
Yeah.
that's, being able to communicate with others and disagree, in a
Yes.
respectful way, right?
Right. Yeah.
Which can be something that is a challenge, for me
Hmm.
sometimes. So super interesting.
Yeah.
Totally resonate with that. Think that's very on point.
And I mean, as a manifester, you're a manifester. You're here to initiate things and create sparks in people. So the fact that you have this is, I'm getting chills, is so powerful for you because it's just another piece of that as a manifester. It's so important for you to share your opinion with others and share it from a place of just you internally knowing like I value my opinion and it doesn't matter if it doesn't land for them. Maybe it creates a spark about something else for that other person.
Mm,
But it's just as a manifester, it's just so important for you to inform your opinions and share them.
yes, which is something I am so working on because as a manifester, I don't want to inform anybody. I just want to do
Yeah.
what I want to do.
Yep.
That maybe is a conversation for another day, but
Yeah.
I am working on informing because I do know that when I inform everybody in my life, things go much smoother for me. I have
Yes.
found that in practice as a manifester.
Yes. That's amazing. And I talked about that too in the human design basic episode. So if you missed that, go back. That's such an important one to just understand the little energetics about each type in human design.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to gate 25. So this is the next one that it's going to retrograde through. And this one's cool because it covers 28 degrees of Pisces all the way to 3 degrees of Aries. So it starts out in Pisces and then it ends in Aries. And I think it's just cool. There's a couple gates like this in human design that overlap with two different signs. So, you could be a Pisces. This is a little tangent, but you could be a Pisces sun and have gate 25 or you could be an Aries sun and have gate 25. So, what are the Aries qualities that are going into gate 25 versus Pisces? So, that's super interesting to kind of break that down. But this gate is called the gate of the spirit of the self. And this is located in the G center. So, um, it's the big square, kind of like where your chest and heart area is. And this gate is all about loving everyone for their own inherent worth, having spiritual quality, wanting everyone to get what is divinely meant for them. I have this gate. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah. And the low expression of this is experiencing challenges of loss of innocence. So, like through the actions of others, and it may cause you to want to kind of close down. So kind of think of like a baby being born and being just kind of whole and pure and having this unconditional love. They haven't been conditioned by anything or been hurt by something that somebody said. And now they, have a bad taste of them. And they're just like, I don't want that person to get what they want because they did it X, Y, and Z. So that's the low expression. It's really moving into, okay, how can I kind of tap into my childlike innocence and cultivate this spiritual love for all beings and see all life as worthy of love. And what I think super interesting about this gate is that it's the start of the astrological new year. So when the sun moves into Aries, it's in gate 25. And this is where the Kazemi is too right now, the Venus Sun Kazemi. So this is big energy, this love of the spirit of the self.
Yeah.
And you know, you can just be so conditioned in so many ways, to kind of move into that low expression here. But um, like how can we feel that spiritual love for everything?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is so Venus Cazimi.
I know.
Venus at its
Yes.
highest expression is that
Yeah.
unconditional love.
Right. And I think it's so interesting that it is part of Pisces. Like it's the very end of the zodiac and it does have a very Piscean feel, but it's also like the start of spring and that rebirth and, things coming to life and being that innocent child.
Yeah. Wow. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm on our website putting in my son's human design chart because I'm like, does he have this, Kate? Because he's born on March 17th at the very end. You might know, it's offhand.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember if he has this or not.
But I
He
mean, he's only
probably
one, so
does.
he doesn't really know that yet. But
So, moving on to the next one. This is gate 36. This covers 22 to 28 degrees of Pisces. And I think this is actually Otto's sun gate,
what gate is this
actually.
again?
This is gate 36 and it covers 22 to 28 degrees of Pisces.
Okay.
And you actually have this gate as well. Um,
Yes, he
and
has it, and I have it.
yeah, yeah. And it's going to be here for a long time. So I don't think I said this already, but the Venus is going to transit through each one of these gates for about 10 days, give or take, a couple. So it is going to be in each one of these gates, a little bit longer than it typically would. And gate 36, it's going to spend a lot of time here. It's going to be here for about a month because it is going to station direct here. And side note as well, the North Node and Saturn are illuminating this gate right now. And this gate's been active for a while. So there's a lot of action here. Um, if you don't have this gate or channel, you can really tap into this. You've probably already been feeling a lot of this energy just because there's just been a lot of action at this specific gate, gate 36. Um, and this is called the Gate of Crisis. And I know it doesn't have like the best sounding name, but it's a cool gate. Um, it's
Sounds kind of
located in
scary.
your,
Okay.
yeah, it's located in your emotional and solar plexus center. And this is kind of like therapist energy. So you gain wisdom from navigating your own emotional challenges to then eventually help others navigate their own emotional experience. So it's just really about going deep and with your own emotions and sharing your own emotions so others can gain wisdom from that.
Gosh, why is everything for me about sharing
You have
everything?
so much of this energy in your chart. It's just so funny. Um, and then the low expression can feel not feeling like you want to go to the depth of your emotions. And, you know, it's really it going in those deep areas where you do come out into the light, going into the dark and experiencing the emotions and knowing that they're not going to last forever. You can't have love without the grief. So it's really about those two polarities, and the low expression is can also be lingering too long in different emotional experiences or holding on to stories around different emotional experiences. It's more about experiencing it and kind of thanking it and letting it go and not holding on to it forever.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and it can also be just kind of feeling fear of emotional experiences or wanting to numb or, avoid life.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, how can we take wisdom from our own emotional challenges and then share that wisdom with others?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Wow, that's super interesting.
yeah.
I do think that that's something that I'm processing currently, like a lot. I don't know, like a lot of just stuff from, I think being a mom, a lot of stuff from childhood, my own childhood and growing up, and like processing that more and letting that go because I don't want to dwell on that. I want to be able to like move forward from there.
Hmm.
And that's been coming up a lot for
Wow,
me
that's
recently.
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, that's a pretty powerful energy just right now with just so many planets activating that gate and yeah.
Wow.
Um
I'm definitely feeling that. That's
yes,
very
I've
interesting.
I've been feeling it too. I mean, some of the planets were in that like back in December, January. So if you've been feeling those energies and kind of contemplating that, that's totally makes sense.
Hmm.
Um and then just last thing I want to say about Venus and human design, if you have Venus at one of the gates I just talked about, um, that's your Venus return, and you're probably going to feel it even more. And it's just such a good opportunity. In human design, Venus really represents the qualities that you value most. And when you use your Venus gifts, it can kind of make you feel loved and it attracts love into your life. So if you actually have Venus there and you can look at your chart and see if Venus is highlighting one of these gates, um, it's just a good time to tap in and am I embodying the low expression or the high expression? And how are you using the gift? Do you need to spend some time revisiting the energy? And again, like how are you seeing this play out in your relationships and in your life and through the universe?
Okay, so let's do horoscopes for each sign. If you are an Aries rising, this is transiting through your first house and your 12th house. The first house has to do with themes of appearance, your physical body, your identity. So, reviewing your style, your hair, your physical health and vitality. That can be really coming up for you at this time. With the 12th house, it is also about reviewing old wounds, trauma, psychological pain or issues. And that scab might be reopened at this time, but it's a really good time for actually healing and to kind of close that chapter and begin again with some of those issues. Now, moving on to a Taurus rising. So, similar to an Aries rising, this is affecting your 12th house as well. So, those same themes of um, pain, psychological pain, mental health, past traumas or wounds can really kind of be coming up for review. But with Venus there, it is connection, it is healing. So there is, although maybe some of those topics are coming up, it is a great time for healing and resolving and moving on. This is also transiting through your 11th house of friends, social circles, community. This is a really great time to connect with old friends, with past relationships or connections, with with groups or communities that maybe you want to get involved in or have been involved in the past and really feel called to reconnect with. Get back out there and really connect with your community and friends. Um, Moving on to Gemini rising. Um, so, similar to the Taurus rising, this is again those 11th house themes of friendship and community, reconnecting with friends or social circles, very similar to the Taurus rising themes that I also spoke about. And then also your 10th house of career. So themes of really reevaluating what brings you pleasure in terms of your career. How can you bring more joy or creativity or beauty or connection into your professional life and what you do for a living? If you do work with people and relationships and building connections, this can also potentially be a time of going back and revisiting some of those past connections or relationships that maybe you previously established. Working with art and beauty, if you work in those types of realms as well, can be a reevaluation of a redesign of what that means for you in your career. Um, Moving on to a Cancer rising, those 10th house career themes like Gemini rising are also coming up, as well as ninth house themes. The ninth house themes have to do with um, philosophy and spirituality and religion. So maybe reviewing some of those topics in your life. What do I connect with spiritually? Reevaluating some spiritual practices. Um, this also has to do with foreign places or foreign travel. This seems to have been and will continue to be a really big theme in your life for last year and this year. Maybe um, finding yourself contemplating taking a trip abroad, planning something like that, really expanding your horizons. And this could also alternatively have to do with higher education in some way. Maybe you're thinking about going back to school or taking a new course or expanding your mind. And if that's something that's been on your mind, it could be a good time to explore what that looks like for you and how you want to pursue that. Moving on to a Leo rising. So, same themes as Cancer rising, really with the ninth house, as well as eighth house topics. So, the eighth house topics are really twofold here. So, financial matters can really come up for you at this time, not necessarily having to do with your own personal income, but maybe you are thinking about taking out a loan or paying off a loan. This can be a good time for you to review your finances, reviewing investments, reviewing loans, reviewing your taxes. It is tax season after all. Maybe there is something, maybe you've submitted your taxes and, there's something that you need to go back and revise or revisit potentially. Um, but definitely financial matters, maybe your partner or spouse, maybe something's happening with their finances or they are, um, rethinking their financial situation. Alternatively, the eighth house also does have to do with mental health and some kind of deeper emotional issues. So, this could also be a good time for you to maybe seek out a healer or therapist or counselor, or there's potential here for you to really do some really beautiful healing work around that as well. Um, all right, moving on to a Virgo rising. So similar themes with the eighth house as the Leo rising, and also with seventh house themes coming up for you. Now, this Venus retrograde for Virgo risings is very, stereotypical what you think of for Venus retrograde, and that it is it is bringing up relationship things. For Virgo risings, relationships have been huge for you over the past 2 years and will continue to kind of see changes there as we get into 2025 and 2026. Um, rethinking patterns in relationships. How do you connect with your partner? How do you cultivate connection and harmony and peace with your partner? Or, if you are single, how are you relating to other people? If, you are looking to date, maybe you're kind of, reviewing that. Maybe you are having past relationships come back up, come to you. Maybe you're thinking about exes. That is normal for this time, but I do think that you really, really, really need to evaluate how do you want to be moving forward, and is this potential pattern or person from the past still serving you? Is this really a good pattern or habit or person that I want to continue forward with? So this is really all about your relationships here for Virgo risings, and you know really take time to think about your relationship patterns and habits here. Okay, Libra risings, same thing with Virgo risings, as this is in your seventh house. So, relationships are really coming up for you during this time. Um, and this is also affecting your sixth house, which is the house of work and health. Um, I want you to think about your daily routines, for Libra risings. And, um, you know, this seems to have maybe been a big grind for you, or your work has seemed very heavy, or like you've had a lot on your plate in your daily routine. And with this Venus retrograde, it's how can you bring in more balance, more peace, more harmony, more connection, more love in terms of your daily life and work and health. Um, you know, Is there more, time that you can take for yourself? Because I feel like the Libra rising has really been grinding the past couple of years, finding that time for, um, small daily rituals to really help you cultivate more balance and peace in your life. There may be some revisions that need to happen in work, in your work style, in your work routines, or in your team at work. Um, and maybe also potentially some things health wise. I mean, are you exercising too much? Are you exercising not enough? Are you nourishing your body in the right ways? These are all things to really think about with um, Venus retrograde in the sixth house for Libra. Um, we'll move on to Scorpio risings. So, same themes with the sixth house there as the Libra rising, with also your fifth house being activated. Fifth house, similar to Virgo risings, the fifth house really has to do with love and romance, and dating and sexuality and creativity. So this can also have to do with relationships, um, exes or past romantic relationships or romantic interests coming back, really taking the time to evaluate, is that what I want? Or, is there a new way that I want to explore these topics in my life? Um, this is a really, really, really beautiful time for Scorpio risings to reevaluate their creativity and, creative passions and projects. Um, so, um, what maybe I've been creatively involved in a project in one way, and I really want to exploring something, doing something different. um it's a really beautiful time to do that. um and if you do have children, or are thinking about wanting children, wanting to get pregnant, this Venus retrograde can maybe bring up some insight or clarity having to do with pregnancy or children in some way as well. Moving on to Sagittarius rising. Again, same themes as Scorpio rising with the fifth house, but this is also bringing up fourth house themes. With Sagittarius in fourth house, this really has to do with your home and family and living situation. So there seems to have been, a lot going on in these topics or areas of your life in the past couple of years. With Venus there, um, that is bringing some maybe hope, opportunity, clarity, comfort there to your fourth house. If you've moved or are doing renovations, this is a really great time to kind of like reevaluate the beauty of your home, or what you want your home to look like. Maybe you can reconnect with family members, and move forward with your relationships in the fourth house. Okay, moving on to Capricorn rising. Again, very similar themes with the fourth house of home and family and living situation. I know I'm a Capricorn rising, and we are totally rethinking our home and doing renovations and things like that. So, definitely resonates with me. And then this also has to do with your third house of communication, of teaching, reading, writing, speaking, finding your voice. Um, you know, how can you, kind of touched on this earlier in the episode, how can you, um, you know, communicate in a more harmonious way that brings people together? really finding your voice. This is something that's been maybe a lesson for you over the past couple of years. Um, it's a good time to reevaluate your communication styles. You know, am I really speaking my truth? Am I speaking, um, you know, am I speaking up for myself? You know, finding, reevaluating, reviewing your communication and your voice. It's a good time to do any writing projects, that you may have, or, start a podcast. Who knows? Um, for Aquarius risings, this also is affecting your third house, like the Capricorn rising, and also your second house of money and finances. So this has been a topic that maybe has been a grind for you the past couple of years. The good news is that, some of your, um, you know, financial struggles or hard work is kind of coming to an end, and there's might be something new blossoming there for you financially, and you might be starting to have some of these ideas really find clarity around this time. How do I want to earn money? Like, there seems to be some changes there positively coming for you financially, and how can I reevaluate my finances to be more in line, um, with really what I want to do, how I want to make money. Good opportunity for you, um, to really reevaluate your finances. I wouldn't say like make any big changes with the Venus retrograde, but maybe you're just getting insight and clarity into what that is for you now. Okay, and lastly, Pisces rising. Very similar to the Aquarius rising, affecting your second house of money and finances, and also your first house, like the Aries rising. So, your physical health, your appearance, your style, how you present yourself to the world, really reevaluating that, again, not making any big brand new changes to your physical appearance or identity, but maybe, there's something, a haircut that you want to get again, or, you know, um, just having fun and playing around with your personal expression. And maybe there's some kind of fresh version of yourself that wants to emerge for this time. So there you have it. Horoscopes for all 12 signs of the zodiac.
I love that. Totally resonate with mine as Libra rising.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm Libra rising and it's affecting my seventh and sixth houses. And just last night, my husband and I were just like getting into like, and it just comes out of nowhere. It's not like I plan to have these conversations, but just having in-depth conversations about our relationship and how we work together as a team and what we could both work on to be better. And it's not an easy conversation. Like, it's not a conversation that I want to have, but I always feel better the next day when I wake up. And I feel like those
Yeah,
conversations always take forever and I'm tired and exhausted and don't want to have it, but it's needed and it just helps you to move forward.
exactly. That's
So
exactly the retrograde
it's just
energy.
so funny that that happened literally last night. And in my sixth house, yeah, I've made a lot of changes to working out and health over the past year, just with Saturn being there and just trying to have some more time for myself with a 2.5-year-old stay-at-home mom with working part-time on top of that. It's a lot. So just trying to find that time and implementing some healthier habits and figuring out what I want to do for work, and just all of those themes are so prominent right now for me.
Yeah. I mean, me too. The horoscope for me couldn't be more spot on. Like home and family and speaking and communication, you know, eh, it's just so spot on. Like I mentioned in the horoscope, where I did buy a brand new piece of artwork for my bedroom, which was like really nice. I really like it. It looks good, which is just silly. But yeah, we're also like thinking about like renovating our house and figuring out, that whole process. And I actually know another Capricorn rising who's going through like this home renovation right now. So
Oh my gosh, my sister's a Capricorn rising and she's doing the same thing. She's been contemplating like should we move to a bigger house because they kind of want a bigger house, or should we renovate or just make some changes because it's so expensive to buy something new. She's going through the
mhm.
exact same thing and she just redid her son's room and it's just yeah, it's just so
Yeah,
fun.
I mean, it's just like always so spot on. That's so funny. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to hear your Venus retrograde stories if you have
Mhm.
any, if you're feeling it. Please let us know because it is always so interesting to me as an astrologer and helps me like in my study of astrology understand the retrogrades better and the cycles better, and it's just so cool and so interesting. So please share if you have a cool Venus retrograde story, if you had an ex reach out to you. I'm also interested in that. Oh, and people usually ask me like, is it bad to reconnect with an ex during this time? Is it good to reconnect with an ex during this time? And I think that is a very personal question. That is like up for you to decide if that's good or bad. If it is, if it feels like repeating bad habits or, old patterns that you want to break, then probably not, you know. But if it's reconnecting to start fresh, to, begin again, to, move forward in a healthier way that you both are committed, then that's a good thing. It's very healthy, and positive.
Mhm.
But don't go back to something, just because it's comfortable and just because it's there and it's easy. That's not a good use of Venus retrograde.
No. And use your strategy and authority too in human design to tell you if it's the right thing for you to do.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And if you have an emotional authority, give yourself some time to figure
Yeah.
that out.
Yep. Sit with it for a while.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Stellar Sisters, and we'll see you again soon.